Hi, welcome to this YouTube channel. Today I'm doing an update on the 80cc motorized bike, and I did an unboxing video and I showed off the parts. And I built the bike, and it took me all of the evening of that video day, and then the next morning I finished it up. It was pretty straightforward. I would say between 4 and 10 hours. You know, if you're watching TV, maybe a lot for 10 hours. I like to watch YouTube videos and stuff like that while I'm working because it makes it just a lot less like work. So as you can see, I've ridden it around. I rode it in the rain, and there's dirt on it. But there's a few points I wanted to talk about to anybody that's getting into the bikes or just wants to watch the video for fun. First thing is the chain setup. A lot of people, they put this chain guard on the outside of the frame. I've seen that, and they cut it to fit, but mine actually slid behind the frame piece, and then I zip stripped it as normal. All the build videos I've seen, they zip strip it, but it does make some sound. The chain flaps around in there, so while technically it does fit, I have about a finger that I can put here. You do hear it when you're running, so there is that. I like the way this looks. It looks like it's made to be that way, and it runs true with the chain, but maybe there is a benefit to having it pulled out. But when you do that, it's quite a bit off the chain toward the back, probably about an inch. But it would keep your leg off of the chain, and maybe it wouldn't flap so much. So that's something I haven't really wanted to change yet because the flapping isn't so bad, and I like the look of it. So that's something I did different than a lot of the other builds that I've seen on YouTube. Another thing is a spark plug. I haven't replaced it yet. It came with a free spark plug. You know, it was included in the kit, which is really nice. The whole thing is Chinese made, so it was a China brand of spark plug. They probably got it from someone that makes them over there. It starts kind of slow. Like I have to ride it for maybe 150 feet, and then it'll start putting and making sound. And so it could be fuel getting to the cylinder, but you know, this has a fuel bowl, and I would assume that's always full. Usually these two strokes will go bad because the fuel goes bad in the bowl if you don't drive them, and then it clogs up the jet, and then the carburetor would need to be cleaned in that instance. But so I'm thinking maybe it's the spark plug, maybe it's an RPM issue. I really get it up to speed, and then I drop the clutch, and then it tries to start. But when it's cold, it does not want to run. But all that being said, this only has 75 miles on it now, so maybe I'll do another video after 1,000 miles or something. But at 75 miles, the compression is such that it's possible it's the compression that's keeping it from starting immediately because it hasn't broken in yet, the rings and the piston. So. But I did want to mention the spark plug. I think I might want to change it and see if I get an initial improvement. I kind of wish I had already done that so I could report on it. But as of today, I have not done that. One thing about going 40 miles an hour on a pedal bike is stopping. Because I don't want to stop bouncing off of a car. Because I've actually seen that in person. And it's a very strange thing to witness when you see a body bounce. So, one way that I've been stopping is using the front handbrake, and I just have regular rim brakes here that, you know, the pads on the rim, and that works pretty good if it's not wet. And the more I've been using it, the more the pad's broken in nice, and it's actually stopping very well. You can actually almost feel it grind now. It's kind of grrr, and it gets down in there. Especially once they get warm, I think they're a little bit more sticky. But what I've been doing that I found out just by trial and error was hitting the kill switch and then using the engine. Because I heard someone say engine braking, and I wasn't sure if they meant hitting the kill switch and using the engine to brake, or if they're just talking about the engine's running at a lower speed. Because usually with engine braking in a car, you don't kill the engine. But what I've been doing, and it may not be good for the rings and the piston to do this, but for what I paid for the motor and what it would take to rebuild it, I don't really care, is to hit the kill switch and the front handbrake and make that the standard issue stopping power. Because when I do that, I know for sure I'm going to be getting a decent amount of braking, and I also know the back tire is not going to lock up. If the back tire locks up, you lose control. If the front tire locks up, you definitely lose control. But you can meter the front brake, and then you have a metered amount on the back. And then if you need even more stopping power, you can pull the right brake. What I would recommend doing is when you mount this, you have to put a hole in the handlebar. You have to drill a hole so that this kill switch mounts to that hole. There's actually a locating pin. I would put that more toward the front so that this kill switch is almost level like a table. Because that way you can rest your hand on the kill switch and pull the brake at the same time. So that's really handy because you get two brakes and you got the motor drag. And that gives you a pretty good addition to stopping a bike, especially if you have rim brakes. If you have really highly advanced brakes, you spent $500 on your brakes, just disregard this whole conversation. This is for the $200 bike. This frame was from originally Walmart, I believe. I bought it off of Craigslist for $40. I got an excellent deal on it. There wasn't a lick of rust, just a little tiny bit right there, and that's it. And it looked like it had been rode maybe 10 times. So, Walmart is a distributor, but this may be an extremely common bike in China. I don't know, they have a huge population, and this gas motor, I'm thinking, is probably common there too. So you can almost just say this was the Republic of China parts. So in addition to that, I have the standard rim brakes. I did touch on that once already. I have not had a bike with disc brakes, so I don't have a lot of experience with the disc braking and how they perform. But I've had some people say that these kinds of brakes are not as much like wear and tear on the rims, because with a disc brake you're stopping the hub and the rest of the rim has to go along. So it's a lot like pedaling. It moves the rim, it moves the hub, which in turn moves the rim. These rim brakes, they stop the rim, so they're stopping you pretty close to the surface, almost parallel with the surface, if you could say, even though this is a circle, as the surface that's making you continue. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's very close to the road surface. So I think that's going to be easier on the spokes, personally. As far as the motor running, I've been having some detonation, I would call it, like pinging almost, and it has to do with the tuning. And there's a pin right here. It's a needle valve that goes in and out, and this is the setting point, like on like a hobby two-stroke motor of any type. Like if you had an RC airplane or anything like that, they always tune with a small needle like this. So this one, let's see where I have it set right now. I'm going to go ahead and turn it in. So there's half a turn. So I'm at 1.5. I'm at 3/4 of a turn. 3/4, yeah. Because that's a quarter. That's a half. Okay. So 3/4 out is what I'm running right now. Initially, I was running some gas I've had for 3 months, and it was 87 pump gas. I run in my jet ski, and I eyeballed 16-to-1 oil, and I'm running AMSOIL synthetic. Now, a lot of people say don't run synthetic initially, let it break in on regular oil. I've decided to go ahead and run synthetic from the get-go, just to see what happens. I think it's going to break in. It'll just probably prolong the break-in period, and then continue to prolong the wear period of the entire motor. So I've been hearing things about internal components possibly going bad. The hardest thing you can do to a two-stroke is have it explode the gas before it gets to the top of the piston, because you got an explosion, then you're going to crush the explosion, and that's really hard on all the internal components. Now, a lot of people say this is only a 6-to-1 ratio motor. I haven't measured it. I have no clue. It would only be me taking someone else's word on the compression. But I definitely know what it sounds like when at the top of the motor you can hear an explosion that's not happy. And so I was getting that. And the choke has a lot to do with it. You can meter the gas here, and on the other side you have there's a lever that goes up and down, and that chokes the air. So it's a very manual setting here. This is not set it and forget it. This isn't set at the factory. They probably have something that's going to let it start. But when you first get it going and it's cold and you only have 75 miles on it, it's probably not going to run very well until it gets hot. And that's what I've been having. It takes about 2 or 3 minutes till it'll idle. It will not idle until then. So after 2 or 3 minutes, it's warm, it's idling, and then you get to flooring it and getting it up to speed, and it will not go 40 miles an hour unless you have it tuned correctly. It can 4-stroke, they say. It kind of goes brr. I can't even make the sound. There's a sound it makes. You'd have to look up videos, I think, that 4-stroking sound is, but it's not burning all the gas per stroke. There's some left over. So if you have it too rich, too much gas here and not enough air, it's going to do that. And then the pinging side is too much air, not enough gas. And then you get a real hot explosion that happens too quick. The 93 pump gas has a different flash point. It's a little higher, so it takes a hotter spark to ignite it, and it burns slower. That's good. I mean, the 87 octane is not the lowest of the spectrum. You can go, I think old cars used to run on like 4 octane or 10 or something like that, and the stuff was extremely volatile. So the 93, even though it doesn't explode as fast, sometimes that's what you want. If you're going to pedal a bike, it's probably not good to explode on the pedal right off. You might want to have a nice metered stroke. So that's kind of what the 93 does, and it's only 30 cents more. You're getting 100 miles to the gallon. One of the main costs here is the oil. If you run decent oil, that's like 50% of your running cost anyway. So if you lose 30 cents there, and I have some of the best oil I think I can find, which is the Ames, what is that? It's something I run in my jet ski. It's just their standard injector oil. It's labeled injector, but it's the injector just mixes it with the gas. So it's a 2-stroke synthetic, 100% synthetic oil. So if you're tuning it and you hear that sound, it kind of sounds like tapping on the top of the cylinder when you're going really fast, and it's especially worse at very high speeds. Then you would probably want to lower the amount of air or increase the amount of fuel. The only thing is you have to keep those in symbiotic relationship while still having it idle. So you can't have them off the scale of idle. So it's all stuff you got to play with. But you can see my setting, I'm out 3/4 of a turn, and then this choke, probably 3/4 open, sometimes full, but if you start hearing that sound when it's running really fast, if you're going 40 miles an hour, you might want to reach down and push it down, because it's probably not good for your internal components. So there's that, and then I do recommend getting a helmet. I actually don't have a helmet yet. I probably should admit that, but that's the truth. I've got it up to 40 miles an hour. I would say it's at least 35. I don't have a GPS, but if you're driving a bike and your eyeballs are wide open and you're taking everything in survival mode, then obviously you're going probably at least 35 miles an hour. So at that rate of speed, it can kind of oscillate different ways. I was noticing kind of this kind of thing where I would go over a bump, and I don't know if my tires were bouncing or the motor was kind of lagging a little bit, but it was kind of, and then it can be dangerous. You know, what happens when that gets out of this? You've seen people when they wobble on the bikes that don't have a hardtail. I don't know if a hardtail would definitely put an end to the wobbling with the what do they call that? A tank something or other. I forget. My brother would know. But anyway, so the helmet. That's next on my list, probably before I run it again. Just because you can tell yourself you're not going to go 35 on it. You're going to go out for an evening cruise, 15, 20 miles an hour tops. You don't want to, bother anyone, but you'll get that one straightaway. There's no cars. You can get on the road technically almost legally because these are 50cc, even though they're marked 80. And you could probably run it and stand at a stoplight, and I actually did that. I got up to a stoplight and waited for traffic to go, and then I went on a 45-mile-an-hour road and just kind of got off as soon as I could, but I was able to go to the mall. So all that said, you know, this thing really needs to be washed. You really rag this off, and that's probably next time on the list too. I have the standard exhaust. It doesn't sound necessarily really good, but it's not really loud. I'm not sure I'm going to replace that. Maybe sometime in the future, but if it sounds like a mini bike, people are probably going to think it's a mini bike or a two-stroke 125 dirt bike. So I actually kind of like the stock stuff because a lot of times they put it stock because it's going to be the most light way. It's going to be the most, you know, not necessarily efficient, but it's going to be good value for what you want to do. And for I've got less than $200 in this with the motor and the $40 bike. I did salvage some handlebars. These were the original handlebars with the bike. I got these actually a year ago just because I had a headset out there, so I grabbed the bike and did that. Another thing I found with this bike is the gear shifter still works, but I don't get the placement I want. I would like to have the brake on this in between these two. There's the throttle here, and you have the shifter, and I have to put this here because this shifter will not go any further up on these bars because they're a little bit tapered. So if you're looking at bars, it might be nice to have some that the taper is closer to the center or they're long enough that you can stack these three any way you want. The tires, I replaced the tires. They were white walls that came with the bike. And these are Goodyear cruiser tires. I didn't like the white walls, so I got ones without. They're Goodyear brand. Obviously, they're not made by Goodyear. They're just branded. They're very thin, though. They're folding tires. So if you get tires and they're marked folding, that's because they fold like a sheet. They're so thin that you can fold them up like a towel or something and put them in a box. You may be able to do that with non-folding tires to a point, but these things fold up and they're very thin and they're hard to get on, and I had never used those before. So this is my first experience with folding tires. The bead, it doesn't feel the same. They don't go on the same. It seems like the bead is more toward the middle of the tire, and that's what's holding it from getting any bigger. On other tires, the bead is more toward the rim. So this seems like it has a bead in the middle, and then the rest of this is just nylon mesh type of a thing. But they're very thin, extremely thin. So honestly, if I get new tires, and I probably will sometime, maybe during the winter or next spring, I'm probably going to get non-folding tires because I would like to have the old style tires that are pretty beefy and you feel like if you go over a bump, they're not going to explode. Not that I don't know whether these will, but I just kind of feel like maybe they would. So other people may have more experience with those. Anyway, that's it. I wanted to show off the bike. Maybe I'll take a ride, and when I get it tuned just perfectly, I'll take it out for a ride and record that. Maybe I'll put that up. So that's my take on it. That's my experience. That's my opinion. And there's many on all of these issues and all of these topics. So, but I just wanted to show you, and there it is. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, like and subscribe.